Welcome into another summer series, summer catch-up edition as Griffin Gonzalez, myself, Greg Murray, bounce around to another different varsity sport and check in with some of our favorite Hoosier athletes. This week, we remain on the golf course. We're talking with Mary Parsons from the IU Women's Golf Program. Mary, how are you? How's your summer? And we love your background. We love your Zoom background, which I know is your actual wall, but welcome in. We appreciate you chatting with us.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you right now? You have the candy stripe background, so we assume you're in Bloomington, but I secretly hope it's some other house.
Right now, I'm actually back in Bloomington, Indiana. I flew back yesterday from Vancouver, Canada, and I'm most likely going to stay here for the rest of the time being, besides like 2 events that I have coming up in July.
Very good. Well, let's talk about what you've been up to these last few months. The season ends prematurely back in March as everything just shuts down. So what is, March, April, May, and up to where we're at now here in June? What's that been like for Mary?
For myself, coming out of it in March, season was kind of cut really abruptly. We were planning our spring break trip, and then it was within 48 hours, season was done, and we were having our senior wrap-up party. And then after a few weeks of deciding, I heard the borders were going to close for Canada. So I headed back home, and then I'd come back actually in April to finish up finals because I had left a few textbooks because I was only expecting to be home for 2 weeks. And then I took a little bit of time off of golf just to focus on my studies, etc., and be with family during that time. And then May, I started getting back into it, training, and now we're in July or June. So,
Mary, you talk to a lot of students. Obviously everyone has had to go through an obstacle of their own, given this whole COVID-19 situation. But you're in a unique position where you're actually not from the United States. You actually had to travel to a different country during this time. How stressful was that process, constantly trying to figure out when borders were opening and closing and going about that, all while being a full-time student athlete?
Mm-hmm. So going back, it was the borders are closing, which a bunch of my teammates are international. I mean, about half the team is. And so we all flew out within days. Everyone took off pretty much. And getting back home initially in March, they didn't have the restrictions, but when I had come back in May, it was that I had to check into this side thing since I was non-essential travel. And they pretty much told me if I don't quarantine for 14 days, I'm subject to a $1 million fine or 3 months in prison, I believe, for not staying home. And they were having health workers come in and check on people at their houses to make sure they were actually quarantining. So coming back into Canada was a little bit more stressful, but coming back into the US wasn't too bad.
A little bit more of a relief, I imagine, with you being in Bloomington. You mentioned you're planning on staying here in Bloomington for the time being, but I imagine that sense of relief to hopefully things to start to trend back being towards normal, as obviously a fall semester is not all that far, out into the distance, and hopefully things can resume on maybe as normal as we can expect them to be.
Yeah, hopefully things kind of come back together. I know a few of my friends are still here and they're just going about their everyday lives, practicing or going out to restaurants nowadays. I went to my first restaurant last night in months, and it's just a different atmosphere, sitting tables away from other guests in the place and whatnot.
You're in a unique position where you play a sport that actually, is pretty good at social distancing in golf. Have you found yourself, I know you said you took a little time off, but now that you're getting back out there, how much are you playing and how are you playing?
I'm playing okay. Kind of coming back off an off-season type of situation. I'm not trying to put too much stress on myself, just trying to feel things out. And then in these 2 weeks coming up before my 2 events, trying to get back into the tournament mode and competition mindset more so. But golf is very interesting in the fact that we can social distance a lot. Back home they have pool noodles in the bottom of cups or little hooks to pull with your putter to get your ball out. or they flip the cup over so the ball doesn't really actually go completely down into the cup. And it's just fun, like being able to go out with other people now because either they're not working or they just want to be out there enjoying something else than watching television.
What's the big thing for you, as you mentioned, getting back into tournament mode or back into competitive golf? What specific things do you work on more than others? What are the big hitting points?
For me, it would probably be more short game focused. I know like my long game is kind of here and there, but if I can manage my short game a lot better and sink those putts or get a couple chips closer, I know coach is always talking about like one more putt, one more chip, one more up and down, like our scores will dramatically drop. So kind of just focusing more on that aspect because that will really be a game changer in terms of scoring.
Mary, you're already one of the best in program history. In fact, your total score of 73 overall is actually a program best, and you're only just going into the junior. I'm just curious, for athletes who come on here and talk to us, especially those who are truly one of the best in the program's history, does that have a sense of added pressure almost, or does it almost feel like that legacy's already there and stored for you?
I try not to focus too much on the scoring aspect. I try to just lead by example and like hopefully the team kind of everyone pulls their own weight because I know it's a individual sport, but our scores are collective overall. And if everyone pulls like a little bit each by themselves, it like collectively makes a big improvement. I mean, that's what led us to nationals during my sophomore year, that we were able to like, we all really just pulled it together in our last 4 events. I think we went like 80% wins going into the Big Tens, finished second. We were right down with the top groups coming down the leaderboard or coming down the 18th hole stretch, and then made it through regionals and then made our way to nationals, which I think was the first time in 12 years because our assistant coach at the time was actually on the team when they had previously went.
Very cool. You mentioned an international background, or you have an international background. Back to the recruitment days and you coming to Indiana. Why Indiana?
Initially, I wanted to study business, and Kelly was a really good school. Veered off that path as soon as freshman year hit. And I really enjoyed both the coaches, both Coach Wallman and our previous coach, Lauren. I really liked their attitudes and how they were very focused on their players and their improvement. And when talking with the girls that were actually playing here at the time, they really enjoyed the coaches, and just the whole environment was somewhere I could see myself fitting in, like a small town environment.
You mentioned switching. Did I hear right? Biology? Is that where you went
Yes.
after business?
Yes.
What do you plan to do with that going forward? And what was that transition like? And how much, I guess, more are you enjoying that path now that you're in your latter stages of the collegiate career?
Initially, so I went in thinking business, sports marketing, and then I tried out like a biology course my freshman year spring, and I really enjoyed that course, and I kind of just stuck through it. So in hopes of maybe doing med school, I haven't decided if I want to take like the 5th year yet or continue on that path, but physical therapy is also something that interests me a lot, being involved with athletes and continuing on with all the connections that I've previously made in that path.
Physical therapy is a big one right now. I feel like a lot of people are really getting into that. Mary, I want you to take me into the clubhouse right now. For those people who aren't familiar with IU Women's Golf or the personalities, what's the clubhouse like in there? What's it like playing with the girls, and what's it like playing for your coaches?
The girls are very international. Last year we had girls from Germany, Ireland. 2 of the girls in my year were very international. One's from Uruguay/Switzerland, and the other one's from Myanmar. And a few of the girls had Spanish backgrounds. So it was kind of like being able to witness a whole bunch of cultures. Alexis has a bit of Turkish culture in her. And it's very interesting. Like we have this kind of cook-off thing with the girls, and it's just fun to see like all of our different backgrounds come together. And it's very interesting that so many of us come from all around the world to come to one place at IU, which we call like our second home. And I think it just gives us a better look at all the cultures around us, and what allows us to like somewhat grow in that aspect rather than just being in a small town of Bloomington. We get to experience all these different cultures and lifestyles, actually, because we're all very different, but we get along in that aspect.
The cook-off, what's your specialty, and what's been your favorite that you've had from maybe another teammate?
So I've only had it for 1 year, actually, because it kind of went away my first year. I had made like just a dessert, so it was kind of like coconut with cocoa type of something. And then I really enjoyed the Burmese food, which my teammate Angela had made. It was somewhat spicy with like coconut rice, but I have a wide range of like taste buds for different types of food, and anything really I can eat. So it was good.
Well, Mary, you guys actually just got your new golf course there in Bloomington, the Foul course. Have you been able to see it, walk it, really witness any part of it? What do you like? What do you not like for your personal game?
For me personally, we were actually training out there last fall and through the spring, and it wasn't overly ready at that time, but seeing it in March, it was really starting to green up and everything kind of coming together. And it's really amazing like how much it's changed over the last few years, because I'd seen the old IU course and only played a few rounds, and then now seeing the new Foul, it's really like a game changer and a step up from the last one. It's definitely a challenging layout with all the bunkers and the fescue. Zoysia is different for me because I'm not really used to playing on it, but sometimes can be forgiving, sometimes not so much. The layout is definitely one that's kind of challenging on the eye, I would say, on some of the tee shots with the angles that you have to approach the greens from. And the greens are so big in the sense that if you were on the wrong side of the green, you'd have about a 50, 60-foot putt coming back. And depending which way you get the fall line, it's going to be pretty quick.
Last week, we talked with Mitch Davis from the men's golf team, and I was curious to hear his answer and yours as well. But just from someone that's so involved in golf, when you look at the Foul course, or you go on a trip to play a course maybe that you aren't familiar with going in your mind, what makes a good golf course? What big points do you look for when you see a course for the first time?
I think the tee shots are kind of one, because depending how you would personally line up with the eyesight of the course, it could really be a game changer for if someone sees like their ball naturally going to the left, to the right. Depending how the dog legs go, it would be kind of tricky on the mind, given how much golf is like a mental game. And what makes a good golf course is definitely the layout, tee shots, which I think our course has. And I guess challenges like the bunkers, long grass, and something that we all have there.
147 bunkers. It's no joke out there at the Foul course. And I imagine for you as a current player, it obviously adds just so much to the program as you were able to play on it. But how much do you see this growing the program that is IU women's golf with having this just terrific facility at the program's disposal?
I think it will definitely help recruit some better players. Just the fact that the golf course is so close to campus. I know that was one of my decisions as well, because I didn't want to waste 30 minutes of my day driving to the course and then 30 minutes back as well, let alone with traffic. I know that was something that was big for me, a decision to come to IU. And then also all the resources out there with, I think it's like 8,000 yards from the tips, double-ended driving range. Our practice facility is pretty good as well, with about like 150 yards of green, and then multiple greens and bunkers to practice our short games on.
Well, we've talked about the foul course. I'm curious, Mary, I feel like every golfer has their dream course that they are dying to play on. What is yours and why is it yours?
So many courses to pick from, but I think one that I would be interested, or of course everyone would be, is like Augusta. They just made that tournament, the Augusta Women's, and for myself, with a few more years of AM and light that I maybe turn pro one day, that would be something I would want to go play, just because, I mean, why wouldn't you want to play Augusta?
It's a simple answer, but one that fits that question. There's no doubt. Why wouldn't you? How about Indiana University, the campus? What's your favorite spot on campus? We're going to take golf out of the equation. So no foul course, no practice facility. It can be a place that you visit on campus, or it can be a restaurant in Bloomington. If you had to pick one, or maybe even a couple, what are your favorite spots in Bloomington?
I think I would really enjoy the Fountain, and I really enjoy Sample Gates. I think both of those areas on campus are very beautiful in their own aspect. Either like the welcoming to campus with all the flowers, and then the Fountain is just a very peaceful environment to catch a break from studying, but also a place that's very in the center of campus where everyone passes by on their daily basis.
Kind of following up Greg's question here about campus, I'm always curious as to hear these athletes' routines. Do you have any pre-match routines, anything you have to do, superstitions before heading out there?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, I used to only play with number 3s, but kind of veered off that. I won't play with 4s. I'll always mark my balls the morning of, always start with a new golf ball. I won't change a glove during a match. Yeah, that's about it. Nothing super crazy.
I feel like we've asked that question, maybe 7 or 8 interviews, Griffin, that we've done. We're waiting for that one that's just so out in left field, and not that they're disappointing, but we're just waiting for that one big one that's so unique. But I like all those. All those make a lot of sense. Mary, before we let you go, we want you to kind of give the fans an inside look at you. Is there anything that people don't know about you? It can have nothing to do with golf. What kind of interests do you have? Maybe a show that you've gotten into or something like that through this quarantine. Give us something that most fans don't know about Mary Parsons.
A lot of people don't know that I'm a dual citizen. I'm originally from Hawaii, lived in Guam for 10 years, and now I'm in Vancouver, Canada. I really enjoy the nature. I've grown up pretty much on the water my whole life, so Indiana's kind of different in that aspect. My TV preferences kind of range from, I started binge watching Gossip Girl to Money Heist, and I could watch Criminal Minds every day. So very wide, broad range of television series.
You hit both ends of the spectrum there with Criminal Minds and Gossip Girl.
Yep.
Love that answer. Love that answer. Well, Mary, again, we appreciate you taking some time to talk with us, talking about the foul course and getting to know a little bit more about you and this IU women's golf program. And we wish you the best luck going forward.
Thank you for having me.